when you look at a period like this, look at the overall, okay? Obviously, you're going to see contact. You're going to see European contact with Native Americans, especially in North America, especially in the United States. Remember, the Spanish had been in Latin America earlier than that, okay? Guys, one of the biggest things you need to know is what happens when English people set foot in the Americas, and the answer is people start getting sick, okay? You guys have all heard this thing called the Columbian Exchange, okay? The Columbian Exchange usually refers to the exchange of food and animals between Europe and the United States, and that's fine. But part of that is biological, okay? So the most distinct part of the Columbian Exchange was disease, pretty much. And it decimated the Indians of North America. And that's something you need to keep in mind. When you see the Columbian Exchange, don't get caught up on the paradigm, it's just fruit and berries and animals and stuff. It includes anything that was traded between the two. Part of that, of course, is microbes, and that's what happened here, okay? A lot of people say that Native Americans got the short end of the stick here. There were diseases taken back to Europe from the, especially syphilis, okay, which is kind of unusual but what happened was when Europeans came here and they started mixing in with native girls and things like this, they caught strains of disease that they didn't have in Europe. And that's why you had an outbreak of syphilis, which will kill you, okay? So sometimes people call syphilis the red man's revenge, okay? But syphilis did not kill near as many Europeans as smallpox killed Native Americans. Smallpox in North America, because Native Americans had no resistance to it, it was almost genocidal, okay? When I say that, it doesn't mean that Europeans came over here and went and found a bunch of Indians and started coughing all over them, okay? They didn't intend to kill them. The thing about it is, though, is that when you start speaking to these people, it's only that race that doesn't have the ability to withstand those microbes. So the effect is if it was genocidal. Genocide is usually the intentional systematic elimination of a racial group, ethnic group like this. This was not systematic and it was not intentional, okay? There's been a lot of argument about that, but when the Spanish first came here, especially Columbus, remember, this is all mercantilism. They're coming over here to make money for the mother country. One way they intended to make money was take Native Americans back for slavery. You don't come over here and kill off the way you're going to make money. Okay, so keep that in mind. If you see somebody make the argument about the European content being genocidal, the result would indicate that would be true. But because it was not intentional, it was sort of non-intentional genocide, which is kind of a weird thing to say because they're still just as dead, you know. Because everybody good so far. All right. Let's go to the 1800s. Okay. By this time, America has settled itself. It's the United States of America now. And guys, I'm trying to think here into essays and things like this. If you talk, you always have to talk about movement. Okay, that's the one thing consistent about the American nation is once they set foot in Jamestown, once they set foot in Massachusetts, they started moving west. It was slow, it was methodical, and they started moving west. And Native Americans are going to be the biggest victims of that. Okay, that's what Frederick Jackson Turner was talking about with the frontier thesis. So when you write these type of things, always leave the reader impressed. When you talk about the reaction between Native Americans and whites, there's a dynamic of movement there. Okay, if you move Native Americans away from white people, the fighting stops. But as soon as white people catch up with them, the fighting starts. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. All right. In the 1790s, okay, as Americans start moving into the Ohio Valley, okay, these Indians are still there. And I don't think we talked much about this one in class. These Indians, the Blackhawks are still there. They're going to make their last stand. They're going to make the last stand for the Native American presence in the Ohio Valley, okay? The chief of these Indians was Tecumseh, all right? He was a war chief that went up. He was a lot like Pontiac. He went throughout the Ohio Valley getting all these tribes together to stand up against white encroachment, okay? His brother was called the Prophet. And this is important because the Prophet was the Sachem. He was the holy man. And when you would go to all these villages and things, he would tell them that this is our destiny. Our culture is coming to an end. So they gathered all these people together and formed a confederation. And they pretty much fought off the United States for about 5 years. Eventually, the last battle they fought was at Fallen Timbers, okay? This is the one where Mad Anthony Wayne won this. And when the treaty was signed, this is the Treaty of Greenville. I think we did talk about this, or it was in the reading anyway, okay? This is why the Treaty of Greenville is important. Think back. As soon as those settlers landed in Massachusetts, in Virginia, and started pushing up against the Appalachian Mountains, when all those indentured servants pushed against the Appalachian Mountains, they wanted to go over the mountains because they knew what was on the other side. On the other side was the Ohio River Valley. All that fur, all that farmland and stuff. So that had always been the great desire of all those English colonists, okay? That's why they had to put the proclamation line of 1763 to keep the English out of the Ohio River Valley, okay? Now, the last push, and now it belongs to America after the Revolutionary War. Indians are making their last stand. When they finally realize they can't stop the flood of white people coming over there, they will sign a treaty with the United States. The Treaty of Greenville is when Indians, they surrender all their claims to the Ohio River Valley. That's important. Because you're talking about, once this happens, whites will flood in. They can't stop it anymore. Native American history is the history of resistance. Okay? It's tragic because no matter what they do, they can't win. They can't win. So they have to make a decision. Do we assimilate? Can we assimilate? Will whites allow us to assimilate? Or do you fight to the death? And that started pretty much here, and it ended at Wounded Knee. Okay? So there's an ongoing thing here. Okay? Right. In 1811, an Indian outbreak broke out in Indiana. Okay? And they finally culminated in the Battle of Tippecanoe. The reason this is important is not necessarily because it was a standout battle. It's because of the American general that won the Battle of Tippecanoe. Okay? His name was William Henry Harrison. Okay? Remember that campaign slogan from 1840, Tippecanoe and Tyler too?